Hello everyone, this is the Casual Fan. Lewis Hamilton was robbed of a historic 8th World Championship at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Since then, the Mercedes driver has maintained silence on social media and has kept himself away from the public eye. However, once he returns, he will have a completely new challenge in front of him with new regulations coming in effect this season and a potential scenario where new contenders might emerge. To add to this, there will be a new teammate in his team as Valtteri Bottas makes way for the young George Russell. In a season with so many variables in play and so many challenges staring Hamilton right in the eye, could it be the case that the biggest challenge for Hamilton comes from within his own team? Could it be the case that for Lewis Hamilton, the biggest challenge in the 2022 season turns out to be George Russell of all people? And could that be the reason why Lewis Hamilton opts to retire at the end of the 2022 season? In this video, we take a look at why George Russell might be the biggest challenge for Lewis Hamilton in the 2022 season. It's fair to say that the loss against Max Verstappen last season did not go down well with Lewis. The driver kept a dignified front during the podium ceremony, but ever since has stayed away from the public eye. The driver even missed the year-end prize-giving ceremony by the FIA in Paris. It's close to 2 months now since the last race of the 2021 season in Abu Dhabi, and even now Hamilton has maintained complete absence from social media. Now, can a part of this absence be put down to a power tactic employed by Mercedes? Sure, that could probably be the case, but then there's this other part where Hamilton has still not moved on from what happened last season. And if that is the case, then how much of an impact does it have on him when it comes to his preparation for an entirely new set of regulations this season? And if he feels disillusioned by what happened at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, then how efficient and effective will his preparations be for a new season? If we are being fair, then it's safe to say that if Hamilton has not moved on from what happened last season, then preparations for the new season might not be ideal, and that could be a deterrent when the actual racing begins this season. Especially when he has a talent like George Russell on the other side of the garage, a driver that is young, hungry, motivated, and looking to make the most of the opportunity to drive for a Mercedes. Can a peak, motivated, and focused Lewis Hamilton beat George Russell? I don't think there are too many doubters for that. But how will a disillusioned Lewis Hamilton, who has not had the perfect pre-season preparation, fare against George Russell? It's safe to say that the things can get interesting between the two drivers this season. The 2022 F1 regulations will lead to reduced downforce levels throughout the grid. The regulations brought in place to further help wheel-to-wheel racing are supposed to slow down the cars this season as compared to the 2021 season. The car characteristics are going to need some adapting as they are going to be an entirely different beast as compared to the cars of yesteryear. However, comparatively speaking, there could be an inherent advantage for George Russell when it comes to adapting to the next generation of cars because of his extensive experience in driving a Williams throughout his F1 career. Williams was more or less one of the slowest cars on the grid and lacked significant amounts of downforce if you compared it with the Mercedes that was driven by Lewis Hamilton. Russell will essentially move from a car with less downforce to a car with a higher downforce, while it would be the other way around for Lewis. We've seen it in the past that these small details make a huge impact in determining who is the quicker of the two drivers. We saw in 2019 when Charles Leclerc joined Ferrari and teamed up with Sebastian Vettel. Ferrari's 2019 Challenger was not as well balanced as the 2018 Challenger. This caused multitudes of issues for Vettel as he had to adapt to a worse car while Leclerc, on the other hand, was moving from a Sauber to Ferrari and found it much easier to adapt and was the quicker of the two drivers. Even at the start of Lewis Hamilton's career in 2007, Fernando Alonso had put down his deficit in qualifying to Lewis to the extensive training program that Hamilton had with Bridgestone tyres and McLaren machinery as compared to Alonso, who was moving from Michelin tyres and just had a pre-season to adapt to the new machinery. Now, coming to the 2022 season, can Russell gain an advantage on this front as Lewis finds it harder to adapt to a new machinery? It's hard to say that it cannot happen. Now, the 2022 preseason is the second time in 2 years where we've had uncertainty around Lewis Hamilton's future in Formula 1. Even last season, there was speculation around the contract extension for Lewis as the two parties could not reach an agreement. Some of it was put down to his demands, while the other half was put down to a lack of favorable terms between the two parties. Although before the season started, this was resolved and the two parties extended their association. This season, Toto Wolff himself has admitted that he's not entirely sure Lewis will come back to Formula 1 in 2022, while the Mercedes driver was himself very cryptic during his post-race interview with Jenson Button in Abu Dhabi. Sure, there have been suggestions about Lewis's social media absence being nothing more than a power move to arm twist the FIA, but it also raises the question why someone like Lewis, who is a global public figure, be willing to shut down all his social media at the request of Mercedes, especially if he's not going to get back the title that was already lost. If we look long and hard at this, we'll be able to conclude that Hamilton's absence from social media might just be his own doing, and he has not moved on from what happened last season. That also means that Mercedes is yet again facing an uncertain future when it comes to Hamilton for the second time in 2 seasons. If somehow George Russell is able to challenge and beat Lewis Hamilton early in the season because of one reason or the other, could we have a scenario where Mercedes feels it has a worthy successor for Hamilton in their own ranks? And could we see that they believe that it's time to look beyond the 7-time world champion? Could it really happen? In Formula 1, teams always plan keeping one eye on the future, and if that's the case, then this is not beyond the realms of possibility. We could see a situation where Mercedes get tired of the uncertainty around Lewis Hamilton before the start of every season and finally decide to pull the plug and back all its resources behind George Russell. And if this is the case, then Hamilton will be facing an uphill challenge in 2022 from the corner where he least expected from, his own team. And now finally, even if we keep all the factors on one side, it's hard to disagree with one thing. George Russell is an amazing driver. It's not only what he has done in Formula 1 that is commendable, because that is something that most of the Formula 1 fans are aware of. It's what he did even before he stepped onto the Formula 1 grid that was quite sensational. Even before he stepped into Formula 1, Russell dominated the Formula 2 championship and won it in his rookie year. The drivers he beat on that grid: Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Nick De Vries, and Nicholas Latifi, to name a few. Lando Norris is considered to be one of the brightest prospects on the current grid. Russell had dominated him and comfortably won the title. Now, this does not suggest that today in the same car Russell would still do the same thing to Norris, but it does show how good Russell is. Irrespective of Lewis not being focused enough or becoming a headache for Mercedes, or even Russell gaining an advantage early in the regulations, The most important fact is that Russell is a pretty good driver and will be a handful for Lewis and can even beat him in a straight fight. This leads to Lewis Hamilton raising his game and challenging the young driver. Arguably, this is the most probable thing that we should expect from a 7-time world champion. But on the other hand, could it result in the entire team stacking its cards in Russell's favor and Lewis, being the smart operator that he has been throughout his career, realizes that his time with the German team is up and decides to retire a year earlier than what his contract states? Question we truly don't have the answer to. But one thing is for certain, George Russell might just be the biggest challenge for Lewis Hamilton in the F1 2022 season. The one that he might not be paying the most attention to right now. So these are my views. I hope you guys liked the video. By the way, what do you guys think? Drop your views in the comment section and please like, share and subscribe to support the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.